Well, you know, I told you, I grew up in a haunted house.
Hey guys, we're here at the Queen's Inn and we are waiting for Sally Diane, our guest, to join us here today and answer some of our questions that we have not only about this hotel, but about her past and experiences. So it's an honor to have her and we hope that you enjoy it. After she leaves, we will keep our investigation exclusive from our conversation with her. It's only 5 o'clock now and it's still bright out, so we like to kind of do it in the evening. But all in all, it's a very beautiful room. There's Rick enjoying some M&Ms in the background. The wallpaper in the hallways is very much like a Stanley Kubrick film, and there's a little bit of heaviness in this room. I don't feel like we're alone just because of how the energy is, and also when this place was built, 1817 I believe, so there's a lot of stuff that went down in here. Oh! That was very appropriate. Like, yeah. We're gonna begin. Hey guys, welcome to the Blair Rick Project episode here at the Queen's Inn with Miss Sally Diane.
Queen of Ooga Booga.
And so thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
It's wonderful to having you. We watched you with your cousins on YouTube and we thought we had to meet you in person.
Oh, that's so nice. And I've watched some of your YouTubes.
Did you?
Very interesting. There's so much activity in Southwest Ontario.
Can you tell us a little bit about the history of the Queen's Inn?
The Queen's Inn was built in 1858, built on a piece of land purchased from the Canada Company, and the Canada Company is actually responsible for Stratford. Basically, they picked the area. It started out as a stagecoach stop. The Ontario Street is actually part of the Huron Highway that went from Guelph to Goderich.
Oh, wow. Straight
through the forest. Robert Johnson had bought the plot of land. He built the Queen's Arm here. And a couple years after he named it the Queen's Arm, he sold it to J.C. Curry. And if you go around Stratford, there's the Huron Street Bridge, and if you look at that, it does say J.C. Curry on it.
Oh, nice.
Because he was a civil engineer that built bridges all throughout Southwest Ontario. Then it went into the Curry family, and J.C. Curry turned it over to his son Fred. I think it was in the 1880s.
Kept it in the family.
Kept it in the family. In 1905, the Queen's Arm burnt to the ground. So Fred Curry rebuilt it in a style by Anderson. But this brick building is the neoclassical style. And you can tell that by the dome. And it is a Stratford landmark. In 1914, he sold the inn to the Pinckney family.
Okay, I wonder why he would want to do that if he was so attached to it. And
that's exactly how I feel about it. You know, It's like he built this new one and it probably just wasn't the same.
Right.
Because it was reopened in 1908, so he was there 6 years and just said, okay, that's it.
From Queen's Arm to Queen's Inn.
Yes. David M. Pinckney took over in 1924 when his father died. And so he was a young man. Much like Fred Curry, he was really into sports. There's actually a hockey trophy named after David Pinckney.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, this hotel was in the Pinckney family from 1914 right into the 70s when it was sold by the Pinckney estate. After that, and I know this from going through our archives, it actually was in a lot of trouble a couple of times.
Financially?
Financially. So it ended up on the auction block, if you will, again. And that's where Barb, the innkeeper's brother, purchased a hotel.
Barb, down who we just met?
Barb. She is the innkeeper. Her brother, Larry, bought this hotel in the early 1990s. Barb took it over, and she was only supposed to be here 5 years. I've been here 16 years, and she's still here. I always get the feeling about this hotel that it does better when it's family owned and operated.
Yeah, there seems to be a good history when it's running that way.
Yes, and even now, you know, the idea of passing from parent to child. Right now, Barb's son Jay is
amazing.
Yes, amazing. Yes.
So, and they treat it well. It's very well maintained. What is your main role here at the Queen's Inn?
Front desk person.
Okay.
Night audit, computer geek.
A lot of hats when you're in a role like that.
Yes.
You know.
As a standard small town person, I wear a lot of hats.
Definitely.
Because of course I'm also the Stratford psychic.
Yes.
I know you were interested in the history of the Queens itself, but you know, if you look at the history of all of Stratford, there is a lot of haunted places in Stratford. The river used to be really deep. They used to have paddle boat races down it before they built the dam. The little tributaries, there's been quite a few kids that have ended up getting injured or drowned. And of course the Thames River, which used to be have the paddle boat races, and now is quite shallow. Good for the swans. Unfortunately, geese and ducks like it too, but
Oh yeah, they're overtaking our country.
there's a lot of spirits of kids around. When you go down Ontario Street, you know, when you're looking at the town hall, look up at the belfry there, and they have a colored light up there. There is a spirit of a woman up there that just looks down Ontario Street. I don't know what her story is or anything like that, but I can sense her every time I go down to Ontario. It's just weird just staring down.
Just a vibe, yeah.
I actually had a client of mine, she had some ghosts in her place, and it was a little restaurant on Erie Street, I think it was.
How fitting.
And I think that the building shared a common basement or something. Because there was something that was just running from business to business.
Wow,
And it was
in like a tunnel or?
I don't know, but the spirit was like a lot of the businesses were having problems with their calculators and cash registers. It's no longer there, now it's AE pasta.
Interesting.
And I went in and I did a cleansing and did a meditation and tried to convince the spirit that it wanted to haunt somebody else.
Go leave.
Yeah.
You seem restless. Go run somewhere else.
And this is a story that involves the Ontario Baptist Church, which starts out in somebody's living room, and then they raise the money, and when they have enough money to build the church, they build the church. Well, the workers that in Stratford, traditionally speaking, at that point in time, we're going back, you know, between 1850 and the 1800s, they didn't just work for money. They worked for whiskey too. So they expected to get money and whiskey. So they start building the Baptist church, and it's made clear to them as they're starting to build that they'll get money but no whiskey, because we're back, no whiskey.
No.
They put down their tools and walked off the job.
Wow. You've got to provide that whiskey.
That's right, they need whiskey.
They need that.
Probably happened in Windsor because we have Armoire.
True.
That's whiskey. That's where it came from. All of Canada.
Yep, and the Crown Royal and
Armoire.
all that stuff. So.
Yeah, I had a friend who had a house on Trinity Avenue, and there's this huge factory, and she had to do a lot of work to the house, and the hammers kept disappearing. I think that the fellow that worked on our house ended up having to buy 7 or 8 hammers.
Oh my God.
Because it just kept disappearing. And so I advised her to put little bits of whiskey around the house.
A peace offering, like, give me my hammer, I'll give you whiskey.
That's right.
That's fair trade, you know.
Sure.
So who needs a ghost walk? We have you to give us, you know, the hot spots. I want to go to that place tonight and get to see the lady, you know, even like the feeling. Because when I walked in here, I know we can't comment on too much, but it felt heavy, like it felt like I was being watched. I felt that a bit in this room, and I know in the reviews they said this room in particular, so we will see what happens tonight. But this hotel, I mean, we've never heard of it before. I think we found it on Haunted History or Haunted Ontario. We thought we have to go.
Yeah. Well, we are the second oldest hotel in Stratford. The first oldest is the Stratford Hotel.
I was wondering if that's the
still
oldest.
open today?
That's still open, but
Yep.
they had a fire too. Only when they had their fire, they moved locations. Grand old lady here is still where she was built.
So this should be the oldest.
Yeah, there is a sign in the Boar's Head Pub, and there's a story behind it. About 7 or 8 years ago, this lady called, and I was working at the front desk, and she asked me, well, is your place really old? And so I went, oh yes, we were established in 1858. Of course, she'd heard enough. She goes, okay. And then she tells me her story, and her story about the sign is that she bought it in an antique store somewhere in the Ohio Valley, and took it to her home in Seattle, Washington, where it hung in her rec room for years. And she was in the process of redecorating, and she was always curious. So the sign says, Queen's Arms, Stratford, established 1864. So she was just calling all the Queen's whatever in Stratford that she could find. And so we ended up getting the sign back, and it predates the fire, and it hangs in the Boar's Head Pub.
That's downstairs.
That's downstairs.
Attached.
Yeah.
We've got to check that out.
Yeah,
Oh,
we were
yeah,
thinking
it's
of
beautiful.
meeting
That's
there.
original from 1864.
Yes.
That's incredible.
That's where it belongs, you you know?
Oh,
Yeah,
for sure.
and back then, when Robert Johnson set it up, it was basically a place for people who were on the stagecoach to stop and have a bite to eat. I think there might have been some accommodations, but he also had a livery attached to the hotel where you keep your horses.
That's awesome. So this hotel would take the horses.
Back in the days when you rode your horses, it's kind of like a parking garage for
Parking,
horses.
yeah.
What was
That's so
that one room used for? We went in on the lobby and there's like 2 double doors.
The Edinburgh?
Edinburgh, and there's a story. There was a visit from Queen of England and the Duke of Edinburgh back in the 1950s. He bemoaned the fact that there was no whiskey.
It's a hot commodity this is.
Yeah, apparently it is. So when Perth County became wet again, you know, where you could sell alcohol, they built the first licensed lounge in Stratford
Here?
and named
Wow.
it the Edinburgh Lounge after the
Classy.
Duke of Edinburgh. Some of the actors would have drinks in the Edinburgh Lounge, like Ethel Merman. Remember the movie Airplane
Yes.
with Leslie Nielsen?
Stop calling me Shirley.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. You remember the one scene?
I was a kid watching that, and I remember he used to live in Toronto. My dad, a few years later, used to drive limousine from Toronto Airport, and he picked up Leslie Nielsen.
Yeah,
no
white-haired guy.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah, he picked him up from the airport, drove him to wherever he was going to go.
Cool.
Awesome.
1975, maybe?
I've only been to Stratford once in high school, and of course we saw Romeo and Juliet and the theater, but I had no idea about the haunted history.
Well, there's another haunting about this place. I heard some singer, Beaver or something.
Justin got his Beaver story. When he was a real little kid, he did a concert in the Queen Victorian room.
Here?
Here?
Yeah, we had some tweenies show up. Oh, and were they ever obsessed? And, oh, can we see the room? And so we go in the room, and they're looking around, and they're taking pictures, and they're oohing and eyeing. And then they look at me, and they go, oh, where was he standing?
He's in town all the time.
With Haley?
I don't think I've seen her yet, but I used to see him all the time. The first time I saw him was at Chopper's Drug Mart.
Well, you know, I told you, I grew up in a haunted house. And my parents were well aware of it. And the house itself was built, I think it was in the 1800s, but it's one of those classic farmhouses where it started as a 2-room house, and then they built onto it, built onto it, built onto it.
Like
So-
the Conjuring house.
Yes, it was haunted by the farmer and his wife. We're
The
pretty sure of that.
original owners?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, like we were upstairs, and if you woke up like at 5 o'clock on a Sunday morning, you would hear these footsteps, and we're talking heavy footsteps
Ooh.
on those stairs, but they're ascending, but they descend and ascend and ascend and ascend, which is really weird because there's only 3 states in southwestern Michigan, out in the middle of a cornfield.
Oh, that makes it even more creepy.
They like their phones because you get these phantom phone rings. It was the first, not the last time I'd ever seen a ghost. You don't see them a lot.
An apparition?
An apparition. Because what farmer used to do is, if us kids were up too late, we'd hear those footsteps go into the hall toward our room. And of course, we'd all run to our bed and throw the covers over our heads. And by the time I was 12, I got sick of it. So
You
I stood up and I looked at the door and I said, "Show yourself." And it was really weird because I got like this white, fuzzy, like cloud vapor show up in my doorway, but I could tell it was having problems.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I could tell it was struggling.
Yeah.
So I felt sorry for it and said, "Okay, you can go."
He's like trying to scold you, like, don't stay up too late. And you're like, I'm 6 now, like, I can stay up a bit later than someone.
I lived in that house for 16 years. We were well aware of it. I mean, we still, my sisters and I still talk about the ghosts.
Wow, that
you know?
shapes you in those pivotal years of, like,
Yeah.
upbringing, you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, they interacted with us. If there was a stressful conversation going on, you know when you open up a wood-burning stove, you hear a little creak? You'd hear that creak. You know, like Mom would get up and put another log on the fire, and
Yeah,
let's
relax a bit.
yeah.
So they were probably just watching over you guys, but
Yeah.
still wanted to know, like, that was their home still, but
Yeah.
they were sharing it with you.
And we were sharing it with them.
Yep.
So we really didn't have that bad of experiences. There was, you know, in The Sixth Sense, that kid describes how the hackles go up on the back of your neck.
Yeah.
That is absolutely
How
true.
it felt.
Yeah, and there was sometimes when they would just want our attention a little bit more than others, and you get that.
Even here today, I was on, that big plush chair.
Oh yeah?
And I experienced what I always experience, and it's just like a subtle on my head. And my mom always said, like growing up, she says, well, that whenever that happens, it's like a loved one. So I often get it, and when I was sitting in that chair in particular, I got it. So it just gave me
so
that
cool.
feeling.
Loved ones will speak to you in a lot of different ways.
Dimes.
Yeah.
My grandpa always leaves me dimes. 10
Yeah.
cents, yeah. And they're
Yeah.
just like, Stanley, I know it's you.
Yeah, and you do.
Yeah,
You know?
it's that feeling. I hear about people that have like haunted houses. Like, I don't know how I would feel living. Like, we love coming to haunted places and things like that, but to actually share all the time. Like, sometimes there's times where you want to, shut it off, but as you're a medium and a psychic, so that you can't really shut it off, can you?
You can try.
You can try.
I find the best thing you can do is just keep yourself protected. You don't have to carry other people's crap.
And energy, and so how do you go about doing that? You mentioned like you cleanse at times, like the energy.
Yeah, you can do that, meditation.
Mm-hmm.
A simple way is just say the Lord's Prayer. And that works whether you're Christian or not.
Absolutely.
And another thing is I find that taking a little bit of rosemary and putting it right on the nape of your neck. Well, you meditate a lot, right?
I do, yeah.
Okay,
I try
so
to.
You see, with you, and this is true of a lot of people who are empathetic or who are clairvoyant, clairsentient, clairaudient, anybody who tends to be connected and reach out and connect to people, sometimes it's like you're reading with your heart and not your head.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're just too connected to people's emotions. So I'll give you a visualization. When you're meditating, visualize a window right in front of your heart chakra. And make it open, like the cartoon windows when it's open and you can see the curtains kind of flapping out in the breeze. And then just close the window until it's open just a crack. On my YouTube channel, right now we do the Psychic Sundays live. People chat and they ask questions.
Yep.
Starts at 9 o'clock every Sunday night.
This is great. Thanks so much for
This
coming.
was wonderful.
Oh, you're welcome. You're totally welcome. Joy Stratford.
Thank you.